I never imagined betrayal would arrive in the form of a message. A simple notification, a ping, and suddenly my world wasn't what it used to be. The video sat there like a loaded weapon on my screen, and when I pressed play, everything inside me cracked. She was kneeling in front of him, and the camera caught what my eyes refused to believe. My chest tightened. My stomach burned. The floor beneath me felt like it was splitting apart. How could the person I trusted most, the person I built my life with, do this to me? At first, I thought it was some kind of cruel joke. Maybe a deepfake, maybe an old clip twisted by someone with an agenda. My hands trembled as I replayed it, desperate to find a glitch, a shadow, a mismatched movement that would prove it wasn't real. But no, it was her. Her voice, her body, her laugh. And him. Always him. The man who was supposed to be nothing more than an acquaintance, a background character in our story, was now front and center, owning a role that was never his to take. The video wasn't grainy. It wasn't rushed. It was deliberate. The phone that filmed it had been propped up against something stable. The angle was perfect, framed to capture every second without obstruction, as though whoever recorded it wanted me to see everything. And I did. I saw her mouth on him, slow at first, almost teasing, like she was savoring every inch of him. I saw her glance up at him with eyes full of hunger, the kind of look she used to give me when we were young, when passion was raw and endless. That look wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to him. I should have stopped the video there. Should have thrown the phone against the wall and refused to let another second seep into me. But I couldn't. Some twisted part of me needed to see it through, needed to burn the truth into my brain so deeply that denial would never be an option. I watched as she took him deeper, her hands gripping his thighs, her hair falling around her face like a curtain. I watched him fist her hair, guiding her, controlling her, and the sound of wet, obscene sound stabbed into my skull like needles. My stomach churned. My throat tightened. I hated every frame, every noise, every shiver of her body, but I kept watching. And then came the part that truly broke me. She pulled away, wiped her lips with the back of her hand, and smiled up at him. That smile. That soft, intimate smile she used to save only for me after I kissed her. I'd memorized it years ago, cherished it like a secret only I was allowed to see. And now it was his. She gave it to him so freely, like I had never existed. I couldn't breathe. My body felt hollow, stripped of everything. The message attached to the video was short, almost mocking. Thought you should see what your wife has been up to. Why would he send this? Why not hide it? Was it arrogance? A power move? Or was he taunting me, daring me to confront her, daring me to step into a game he already controlled? The question burned, but before I could even form a theory, the bile rose in my throat and I stumbled to the bathroom. I retched until there was nothing left, until my ribs ached and my eyes watered. Betrayal tastes bitter on the way up. When I finally looked in the mirror, I barely recognized the man staring back. Bloodshot eyes, clenched jaw, sweat beading on my forehead. I looked like someone who'd just been told his life was a lie, because that's exactly what I was. But beneath the pain, beneath the humiliation, something darker stirred. Rage. It spread like fire, slow at first, then devouring everything in its path. I wanted to storm into the bedroom, drag her out of bed, shove the phone in her face, and demand the truth she'd never willingly give me. But I didn't. Because even in my fury, something cold and sharp whispered to me, "Don't confront. Don't reveal what you know. Watch. Wait." So I waited. I paced the living room in the dark, the clock ticking too loudly, the fridge humming, every sound a reminder of how silent my world had become. She was upstairs, asleep in our bed, curled beneath the sheets as if nothing had happened. The thought of her lying there peacefully, while I carried this storm inside, might almost broke me again. Hours passed. I sat in the dark and replayed the video over and over. Every time, I caught something new. The intimacy in their touches. The ease between them. This wasn't some one-time mistake. This was practiced. Familiar. Rehearsed by repetition. My wife wasn't slipping, she was living a second life. And then another horrifying detail struck me. The room in the video wasn't a hotel. It wasn't anonymous. It looked like an apartment, personalized with framed photos on the wall, a throw blanket on the couch. That wasn't a rented space. That was someone's home. His? Theirs? My chest tightened again at the thought of her stepping into another man's world so comfortably, like she belonged there. I thought back to little things. Nights she came home late, blaming traffic or work. Clothes she bought without telling me, explaining it away as on sale. The way she smiled at her phone sometimes, quickly putting it away when I walked into the room. I told myself back then that marriage had its ebbs and flows, that suspicion was poison, that love meant trust. But trust, I realized now, had blinded me. And the worst part? She was good at it. Too good. She had looked me in the eye, kissed me, laughed with me, made dinner with me while living this lie. Sleep was impossible. My mind was a battlefield of images and questions. Why him? Why me? Why now? The rage was overwhelming, but so was the fear. Fear that this wasn't just an affair. Fear that the video wasn't just betrayal, it was a message, a warning, a declaration of war. By dawn, I knew one thing for certain: I wouldn't confront her yet. Confrontation would only tip my hand. No, I would watch. I would learn. I would let her bury herself in her lies, while I uncovered every detail. So I started with her phone. I waited until she was in the shower that morning, steam filling the bathroom, her voice humming softly behind the door. I slipped into the bedroom and picked up her phone from the nightstand. Locked, of course. But I'd seen her unlock it enough times to know the pattern. My hand shook as I traced it across the screen. Success. I dove into her messages. Most of them were innocent family, co-workers, friends. But then I found him. His name. Threads of conversations that made my heart pound and my stomach turn. Some were short. Can't wait. Last night was amazing. Others were longer, dripping with intimacy I hadn't tasted in months. She told him things she hadn't told me in years. Her dreams. Her fears. Her fantasies. And his replies weren't just lust, they were ownership. One message nearly made me drop the phone. Next time we should film it properly. I love watching you on your knees for me. Film it properly. My blood ran cold. That meant the video I received wasn't the only one. There were more. Maybe dozens. Maybe hundreds. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she given herself to him while I sat at home, waiting like a fool? A sudden wave of nausea hit me, but I forced it down. I took screenshots of everything, sent them to my own email, then carefully put her phone back where I found it. When she stepped out of the bathroom minutes later, wrapped in a towel, smiling at me like everything was normal, I felt my fists clench. It took every ounce of control not to explode right there. Instead, I smiled back. Hollow. Mechanical. I kissed her forehead and told her breakfast was ready. She laughed, kissed my cheek, and went about her morning, as if she wasn't ripping me apart piece by piece. But she didn't notice the difference in my eyes. She didn't see the storm I hid behind the calm. And that's when I realized this was my advantage. She thought I was blind. She thought I was still the fool she could deceive. But I wasn't blind anymore. I was awake. And I would uncover everything. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time she smiled at me, every time her hand brushed mine, every time her phone buzzed in her pocket, I saw the video playing in my head. Her lips wrapped around him. her eyes gleaming with lust. That smile she gave him after she finished. It was like a disease spreading through me, corrupting every thought until there was no space left for anything else. I had the screenshots saved, hidden away in a private folder under layers of encryption. Insurance. Evidence. But it wasn't enough. Screenshots proved she betrayed me, sure, but they didn't tell me the whole story. I wanted to know everything. Needed to know. The first night after discovering her messages, I followed her. She told me she was meeting an old friend from college for drinks. She kissed my cheek, smiled that same practice smile, and walked out the door as if she wasn't lying straight to my face. I waited 10 minutes, then grabbed my keys and slipped into the car. She didn't drive to the bar she claimed. She drove across town, weaving through streets I didn't recognize, until she parked in front of an apartment complex. My chest tightened. The same layout. The same tan bricks. The same narrow balcony I had seen in the background of the video. My suspicions hardened into certainty. This was his place. She stepped out of the car, her heels clicking against the pavement, her dress hugging her in a way I hadn't seen in years. She adjusted her hair in the reflection of the car window, checked her phone, and walked inside without hesitation. Like she belonged there. I sat in the car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles went white. I wanted to storm in after her, tear the building apart, drag her out by the wrist and scream the truth in her face. But I didn't. I forced myself to sit there, to breathe, to watch. Minutes passed. Then an hour. My pulse hammered. As I imagined what they were doing inside. Every detail from the first video replayed, but worse, because now it was live. I was about to leave, about to drown myself in rage, when my phone buzzed. A new message. From an unknown number. Check your email. My heart stopped. I opened my email, and there it was. Another video. Different angle. Different night. Same two people. This one was worse. Much worse. She wasn't just kneeling. She was straddling him on the couch, her dress pushed up around her waist, her moans echoing off the walls. His hands gripped her hips as she rode him hard, her head thrown back, her mouth open in pleasure I hadn't seen on her face in years. And then God Help Mesh said his name. Loud. Clear. Over and over like a chant, like a prayer. I froze. My lungs refused to work. Hearing her cry out for him, like he was the only man who could make her feel that way, was worse than seeing it. It was a knife through the chest, twisted until there was nothing left but bleeding silence inside me. I couldn't stop watching. Every thrust, every gasp, every filthy word she whispered into his ear, it all carved itself into my memory. My wife. My partner. The woman I trusted. She wasn't just cheating. She was his. Body, mind, and soul. And he knew I was watching. That's why he sent it. That's why the camera angle was perfect again, framed to capture every obscene detail. It wasn't random. It was a message. And the message was clear. She's mine now. I closed the video, shaking, drenched in sweat despite the cold night air. My hand shook so badly I could barely keep hold of the phone. My chest hurt like I'd been punched. But beneath the agony, something new rose inside me. Not just rage. Not just jealousy. Something colder. A need for answers. A need for vengeance. The next day, I couldn't look at her without replaying the video in my head. She moved around the kitchen in her robe, humming softly as she made coffee, her hair still damp from the shower. I stared at her lips, remembering how they wrapped around him. I stared at her hips, remembering how they rocked on top of him. Every part of her body was tainted now, stained with the memory of what she'd given to someone else. And yet, she smiled at me, kissed my cheek, asked how I slept, as if she wasn't ripping me apart from the inside, as if she wasn't sneaking away at night to fuck another man while I sat at home waiting like a fool. I smiled back, played the part, because the truth was, I wasn't ready to confront her. Not yet. Not until I had every piece of the puzzle. Not until I knew exactly how deep this betrayal ran. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, I slipped downstairs with her phone again. I scrolled through more messages, digging deeper, searching for anything I hadn't seen before. That's when I found the folder, hidden inside a photo album disguised as a shopping app. My stomach turned as I opened it. Videos. Dozens of them. Each one worse than the last. In one, she was bent over the kitchen counter, his hands gripping her waist as he pounded into her from behind. She looked back over her shoulder at him, eyes wild with lust, begging him not to stop. In another, she was blindfolded on his bed, wrists tied above her head, moaning as he used her in ways she'd never let me. The camera caught everything: her tears, her gasps, the marks he left on her skin. I watched them all. Every single one. It was like watching my own execution on repeat, but I couldn't stop. I needed to see. Needed to understand how far she'd gone. The answer was clear. She'd gone all the way. By the time the sun came up, I wasn't the same man anymore. The husband who trusted her, who loved her, who believed in her, that man was gone. In his place was someone harder, colder, someone who wanted blood. But I couldn't rush it. If I confronted her now, she'd lie. She'd deny. She'd twist it until I was the villain, until I doubted my own eyes. No. I needed to be smart. I needed to let her keep digging her grave. And then I'd bury them both in it. The days blurred together after that. I played the role of the loving husband, all smiles and small talk, while inside I cataloged every detail of her betrayal. Every message. Every call. Every night she slipped out and came back smelling faintly of his cologne. She thought I didn't notice. She thought I was blind. But I saw everything now. And so did he. Because the messages kept coming. More taunts. More videos. Sometimes in the middle of the night. Sometimes when she was standing right next to me. It was like he knew exactly when to strike. Like he wanted to watch me squirm. One message read, "You don't satisfy her anymore." "I do." Another, "She whispers my name when she comes." "Not yours." Each one was a dagger. Each one pushed me closer to the edge. But the worst came 3 nights later. I was sitting in the car outside his apartment again, watching, waiting, when my phone buzzed. Another email. Another video. This time, it was live. A live stream. My heart stopped as I opened it. The screen lit up with her face, flushed and breathless, her hair sticking to her forehead with sweat. She was on her knees again, looking up at him with that same hungry gaze, his hand gripping the back of her head as she worked him deeper and deeper. Her moans vibrated through the speakers of my phone, echoing in the silence of my car. And then she said it. Words that shattered me completely. "I love you." Not to me. To him. The room spun. My vision blurred. My hand shook so violently I nearly dropped the phone. I felt something break inside me, something that could never be fixed. This wasn't just lust anymore. This wasn't just an affair. This was love. And she was giving it to him. I sat there for hours, frozen, watching until the stream ended, until the screen went black and I was left staring at my own reflection. A man destroyed. A man humiliated. A man consumed by rage. But not broken. No. Not yet. Because as I sat there, as the rage boiled and the betrayal burned, I knew one thing with absolute clarity. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And the next time she left the house, I would follow her. Not just to watch. Not just to wait. But to act. The night I decided to follow her, the air felt heavier than usual, as though even the world knew I was about to cross a line I could never uncross. She told me she had a late meeting. She kissed my cheek, smiled, and walked out the door with the same casual grace she always carried, completely unaware that I knew every word was a lie. I waited 10 minutes, my heart pounding, then slipped into my car and followed her at a careful distance. Her taillights glowed red through the dark streets, leading me like beacons toward the truth I already knew but needed to see with my own eyes. She didn't go to the office. She didn't go anywhere near downtown. Instead, she drove the familiar route across the city to his apartment complex. My chest tightened when I saw her park in the exact same spot as before, adjusting her hair in the rearview mirror before stepping out. She wore a black dress this time, short, clinging to her curves, her heels clicking against the pavement as she walked inside. I parked farther down the street, hidden by shadows, and sat there, gripping the steering wheel. My pulse thundered in my ears. I didn't know what I expected, maybe to storm in and catch them in the act, maybe to drag her out kicking and screaming. But the cold, sharp part of me whispered again, not yet. Watch. Learn. Wait. And so I did. Minutes stretched into an hour, the silence inside the car pressing down on me. I was about to break when my phone buzzed. My stomach dropped as I saw another message from that same unknown number. Want to see what she's doing right now? I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the screen. Every part of me screamed not to look, that seeing it would destroy me completely. But I tapped anyway. A video opened. Live feed. It was them, in his apartment. He had set the phone on a shelf this time, angled perfectly to capture the entire bed. She was already naked, straddling him, her body moving with wild, desperate rhythm as she rode him. Her head was thrown back, her hands pressed against his chest, her moans spilling out raw and unrestrained. I froze. My throat locked. My lungs refused to expand. This wasn't just sex. This was worship. She moved like she was possessed, like every nerve in her body existed for him alone. Her gasps grew louder, her pace faster, and when he gripped her throat and pulled her down for a kiss, she melted against him like she had been waiting all her life for that moment. And then she said it again. Words that cut deeper than any blade. I love you. The world tilted. The car spun around me, though it hadn't moved an inch. My chest caved in, my vision blurred, my heart threatened to tear itself apart. I wanted to scream, to rip the phone in half, to run into that apartment and end it right there. But instead, I sat frozen, watching her give every ounce of herself to him in a way she hadn't given me in years. The live stream went on for what felt like hours. Every position, every kiss, every filthy word she whispered, it was all there, documented in perfect, excruciating clarity. My wife wasn't mine anymore. She was his. Completely. When the stream ended, I sat in the car shaking, drenched in sweat, my body trembling like I'd been electrocuted. The rage inside me burned hotter than ever, but beneath it, something darker began to take shape. A plan. If he wanted me to see, if he wanted me humiliated, then I would play along for now. I would let him think he controlled the game, that I was just a passive audience to his conquest. But while they writhed in pleasure upstairs, I was already building the foundation for their downfall. The next morning, she came home smiling, humming softly as she made breakfast, her skin glowing from the night before. I stared at her across the table, every bite of food turning to ash in my mouth. She laughed at something trivial, her eyes sparkling, and I wanted to grab her by the throat and demand to know how she could smile after what she'd done. But I didn't. I smiled back, hollow and mechanical, hiding the storm behind my eyes. That evening, I installed cameras in the house. Tiny, hidden, tucked away in corners she would never check. I told myself it was for proof, for leverage, but deep down I knew it was more than that. I wanted to catch her, wanted to watch her lies unravel in real time, wanted to see the moment she thought she was safe enough to contact him, to whisper his name while standing under my roof. It didn't take long. 2 days later, she told me she was going shopping. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her purse, and left. I opened my laptop, connected to the cameras, and watched as she returned to the house 15 minutes later. She wasn't carrying bags. She wasn't shopping. She was on the phone. I turned up the volume. Her voice was soft, playful, the tone she used to reserve for me. "I miss you already," she whispered. "Last night was incredible. I can still feel you inside me." My stomach dropped. She giggled, a sound that used to melt me but now curdled my blood. "I'll sneak out tomorrow," she promised. "He won't suspect a thing." I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms until I drew blood. He won't suspect a thing. That's what she thought of me. Blind. Oblivious. A fool. But I wasn't a fool anymore. That night, I hacked into her cloud account. I knew her passwords, her recovery questions, everything. It didn't take long to break through. What I found nearly destroyed me. More videos. Hundreds of photos. All hidden away where she thought I'd never look. In one, she was on her knees in the shower, water cascading over her as she serviced him, moaning like she couldn't get enough. In another, she was tied to the bed, blindfolded, begging him to use her harder, her voice raw with desperation. The collection spanned months, maybe longer. Every click was a dagger. Every image a nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. But I kept going. I forced myself to see it all. Because the more I saw, the more certain I became this wasn't just an affair. It was war. And he wanted me broken. The final straw came a week later. Another message. Another video. This one different from the rest. She wasn't in it. It was just him, looking straight into the camera, smirking. "She's mine now," he said, his voice calm, mocking. "She loves me in ways she never loved you. And every time she screams my name, I'll make sure you hear it. Because this isn't about her anymore. It's about us. About you knowing you've lost." The screen went black. I sat there in silence, the weight of his words pressing down on me. This wasn't just about stealing her. This was about humiliating me, erasing me, turning me into a spectator of my own destruction. But he made one mistake. He underestimated me. Because I wasn't broken. Not yet. And the next time she left to see him, I wouldn't just follow. I would go inside. The night I finally stepped across the threshold of his apartment, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. It wasn't fear, it was something far darker, a volatile mix of rage, anticipation, and the icy calm of a man who has nothing left to lose. She had told me she was meeting friends. I didn't even bother to pretend to believe her anymore. I watched her dress in front of the mirror, sliding into a red dress that clung to her hips and bared her shoulders. She adjusted her lipstick, dabbed perfume along her neck, and smiled at her reflection with a softness I hadn't seen in years. That smile wasn't for me. I waited until she left, then followed, keeping my headlights off when necessary, heart hammering with every turn. I knew exactly where she was going, but I needed to see it again, to confirm with my own eyes. When she pulled up to his building and stepped inside, I parked across the street, sitting in darkness, watching her disappear into the belly of betrayal. But this time, I didn't stay in the car. I slipped out, moving through shadows, every sense heightened. My body felt weightless, detached, as though I were watching myself from above. At the side of the building, I found a narrow service entrance, unlocked, as though fate itself wanted me inside. The stairwell smelled of dust and metal. My footsteps were silent, deliberate. I knew his apartment was on the 4th floor. I climbed slowly, pulse thundering, every muscle coiled tight. When I reached his door, I paused, pressing my ear against the wood. I didn't need to wait long. Her moans spilled out, muffled but unmistakable, the same sounds that had once belonged to me alone. His deeper groans followed, a rhythm of flesh and desire that twisted my insides into knots. My hands trembled against the door. I wanted to smash it open, to drag them both out, but I forced myself to breathe, to think. This wasn't the moment to destroy. This was the moment to learn. To watch. The hallway was empty. I crouched low, pulled a slim tool from my pocket, a lockpick I had bought days earlier in secret, and worked the mechanism. My hands moved with surprising steadiness, rage sharpening my focus. Within seconds, the lock clicked, and the door eased open a fraction. I slipped inside. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a lamp in the corner. The air was thick with sweat and perfume, a suffocating cloud of lust. I crept forward, heart clawing at my ribs, until I had a clear view into the bedroom. And there they were. She was on her knees, naked, hair tangled, eyes closed in bliss as she devoured him. His hand tangled in her hair, guiding her movements, his smirk etched across his face like he knew I was there, like this was all part of his show. I froze in the shadows, watching her betray me with every desperate suck, every whimper of pleasure she gave him. My chest burned, my vision blurred, but I couldn't look away. When he pulled her up and bent her over the bed, slamming into her with brutal force, she cried out so loudly I thought the neighbors would hear. My nails dug into the wall, leaving grooves in the plaster. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to rip him apart with my bare hands. But still I waited. Still I watched. Because this wasn't just sex. It was a performance. And I was the audience he wanted. She begged for more, screamed his name, her voice ragged and wild. He whispered in her ear, words I couldn't quite catch, but I saw the way she shuddered, the way her body obeyed him like he was her master. And then I heard it. "Say it," he demanded. "I love you," she sobbed, clutching the sheets. "I love you, I love you, I love you." Each repetition was a dagger, carving deeper into my soul. My wife, the woman I had built my life with, reduced to nothing more than his plaything, declaring her love with a passion she hadn't shown me in years. I stepped back into the shadows, trembling, my teeth grinding so hard I thought they might shatter. My heart screamed for me to end it, to burst into the room and tear them apart. But my mind whispered again, cold and merciless, "Not yet." I slipped out as silently as I had entered, the echoes of their cries chasing me down the stairwell, burrowing into my skull. By the time I reached my car, I was drenched in sweat, my hands slick against the steering wheel. But something had shifted inside me. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I wasn't just a witness. I was part of the game now. The next day, I acted normal. Smiled. Kissed her cheek. Pretended I hadn't seen her giving her soul to another man. But beneath the mask, my mind raced. I replayed every detail of what I had seen, every word, every sound, storing them like weapons for the war ahead. And then I made my move. That night, when she fell asleep beside me, I unlocked her phone with a code I knew by heart. I scrolled through her messages, her photos, her cloud. I transferred everything, every video, every picture, every message between them onto a hidden drive. Proof. Ammunition. But I didn't stop there. I sent him a message. From her phone. "Tomorrow. Hotel. Room 412. I'll be waiting." I deleted it before she could see, wiped the trace clean. He would think it came from her. He would go. And when he did, I would be waiting. The trap was set. The next day felt endless, every minute dragging like an eternity. She left the house, claiming she had errands. I let her go. It didn't matter. She wasn't the one I was hunting tonight. I drove to the hotel hours early, rented a room across the hall from 412, and waited. The hallway smelled of stale carpet and bleach. My ears strained for every sound, my body coiled tight like a predator in the dark. And then, at last, he arrived. I recognized him instantly, even though I had only seen fragments of him in those cursed videos. Taller than me, broader, moving with the arrogance of a man who believed he had already won. He wore a leather jacket, his smirk carved deep into his face as he walked straight into room 412, expecting to find her waiting, eager, begging for him. But she wasn't there. And I was. I slipped out of my room, silent, closing the door behind me. My hand tightened around the object in my pocket, a heavy steel wrench I had bought earlier that day. My pulse roared in my ears, my vision narrowed to a tunnel. This was it. The moment I stopped being a spectator. The moment I took back control. I stepped into the doorway of 412, the key card I had lifted from the front desk sliding smoothly through the lock. The door clicked open, swinging inward without a sound. He turned, confusion flashing across his face. And I smiled. He turned when the door clicked open, surprise flashing across his face for only a second before it curled into that same smirk I had seen 100 times through a screen. He didn't even look afraid. Not even startled. "You?" he said, as if he had been expecting me all along. I stepped inside and shut the door behind me, the wrench heavy in my grip. My heart thundered, but my voice came out steady, low, colder than I thought possible. "Surprised?" He shrugged, leaning against the dresser like he owned the place. "Not really. I wondered how long you'd keep watching before you grew a spine." His eyes flicked to my hand, noting the weapon, but he didn't flinch. "So what now? You gonna hit me? Think that'll change what she feels when she screams my name?" The words punched through me like knives, but I didn't move. Not yet. I wanted him talking. I wanted to hear every filthy truth from his mouth. "You planned this," I said, my knuckles white around the wrench. "Of course I did," he replied casually. "Every message, every video, she wanted me to delete them. But I sent them to you instead. Because I wanted you to see. I wanted you to know that your wife isn't yours anymore. She's mine. Every inch of her." My throat tightened, rage threatening to break loose, but I forced myself still. He smirked again, sensing my struggle, feeding on it. "She begged me not to," he continued, laughing softly. "Begged me to stop filming, said it was wrong. But the second I told her you'd probably watch, God, the way she moaned after that." He tilted his head, eyes gleaming. "She liked knowing you were on the other side of the glass. She liked humiliating you." I lunged before I even realized it, slamming him against the dresser with the wrench pressed hard against his throat. His smirk widened even as he choked, as if he'd won something by dragging me into violence. "Do it," he rasped, his voice strained but mocking. "Go on. Kill me. Then what? Think she'll come running back to you? Think she'll love you again after what she's tasted?" I tightened the wrench, his face reddening, his smirk faltering just slightly. My pulse roared in my ears. One twist, one squeeze, and it would all be over. And that's when the door opened. She stood frozen in the doorway, her purse sliding from her shoulder, her eyes going wide as she saw us locked together. What are you doing?" she stammered, her voice trembling. I turned to her, fury boiling over. "What am I doing? What the hell are you doing? How long? How many times? Do you have any idea what I've seen? What I've heard?" Tears filled her eyes, but she stepped forward, hands shaking. "Please let him go. Don't!" I snapped, pointing the wrench at her like a blade. "Don't you dare protect him. Not after everything." She froze, lips trembling, caught between us like prey cornered by two predators. He laughed, his voice hoarse from my grip but dripping with venom. See? She's not begging for you. She's begging for me. Her eyes darted to me, then back to him, her face contorted with guilt and fear. It's not what you think. I cut her off, my voice shaking with rage. Don't lie to me again. I've watched you. Every second. Every filthy, disgusting second. Her face crumbled, tears spilling down her cheeks. I didn't mean for it to happen. I was lonely. You stopped looking at me the way you used to. The words twisted deeper than any blade. She had excuses, rationalizations, but not once did she deny loving him. Not once did she say she still loved me. He chuckled again, and I slammed him harder against the dresser. Shut up! I roared. But he wouldn't. He leaned close, his lips curling into that same maddening grin. She loves me, he whispered. And deep down you know it. That's why you can't kill me. Because if you do, you'll never know if she would have chosen me over you. The room spun. My grip trembled. My wife stood there sobbing, torn between her lover and her husband, and I realized in that moment the truth I had been avoiding. I wasn't just fighting him. I was fighting her. Because no matter what I did to him, her betrayal would remain. The sounds, the words, the memories, they were carved into me forever. My arm shook violently as I pressed the wrench against his throat. My wife cried out, begging me to stop, her voice breaking into hysteria. He stared up at me, defiant to the last, daring me to end it. And in that moment, the world narrowed to a single choice. End him. Or walk away. Destroy everything in an instant. Or let the poison fester forever. My hand lifted, the wrench raised high, his eyes locked on mine, her screams piercing the air. And then, the wrench frozen mid-swing, the moment stretched into eternity. Whether I brought it down or let it fall, whether I destroyed him or destroyed myself, I'll never say. Because in that room, with my wife's tears staining the carpet and his smirk still daring me on, there was no ending. Only the silence of a life shattered beyond repair.